Yeah, this is the Fresno Nightcrawler. I've been listening to your guys' show for quite some time, and I gotta say, me and my two friends feel horribly misrepresented by your podcast. Let's start with the obvious one. Saying that the Fresno Nightcrawler is fake is just ridiculous. We are totally not fake. So I just wanted to throw that out there that we hate your show. This show sucks. Anyway, keep up with whatever it is that this show does besides being wrong because the Fresno Nightcrawler is real. We exist and we matter. Bye.
Welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Jeremy. Today we're going to dive into the conclusion of our presentation on Skinwalker Ranch. Today's going to be a good one. We are going to dive into some of the theories behind what's actually going on, and we're going to get into our feels about the subject ourselves. There's going to be a lot of conversation tonight. And, of course, Jeff will probably try to convince us that it's all the government. Without further ado, let's go ahead and invite Shadowband Podcast's own Jeffrey Fernandez. Jeffrey, how are you doing today?
Thank you very much, Jeremy. It is I, Jeffrey Spaces Fake Fernandez. I'm doing quite well, thank you. How are you, sir?
Oh, man, I've had better days. We are getting our bathroom torn up. I don't even want to talk about it. This is a happy place right now. We're going to be happy. Happy. Joy. So, are you ready, man?
I'm ready, dude.
I think you're gonna shine today.
I think everybody knows what I'm going to say today, but I'll say it anyways, just for everybody's pleasure later.
All right. Let's go ahead and bring in the child of the group, Sausage Nipple Jake.
What's up, dude? I was like, whoa, red flag. Okay, all right. Just Jake.
Oh
boy.
Hey, Jake,
What's up,
let's see them nips, man.
Oh, look at them nips. I shouldn't have gotten the red shirt. It just takes away from how glorious these big, giant, pink pepperoni nipples are. But here they are. There's them nipples.
Good old thumbs up, smile.
Good old thumbs up. Thumbs up, smile, nipples.
It's like one thumbs up and two nipples down.
That's right. No, it's not the greatest shirt.
You doing all right, man?
Yeah, I'm ready to get into this. Right before this, I was watching the Hunt for the Skinwalker, and I didn't finish it. I got almost halfway through. I got a couple interesting tidbits that I want to bring up that actually somewhat changed my opinion on the events of the ranch. So when we get into it, I'll pop those out. So that'll be really cool.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, let's move on to. Let's do Wes. We'll save ladies for last today. Wesley believes in space. King, how are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing good. You ready to dive into what we believe is going on here?
Absolutely.
Have you dove into Skinwalker Ranch since the last recording?
Yeah, I actually was watching the same documentary that Jake was. I didn't get quite all the way through it 'cause I had a bunch of stuff going on this weekend, but I'm ready to hear everyone's opinions on everything.
So the documentary that Jake's talking about, everybody, is basically the brother or the sibling to the book, right? It's by the same people, George Knapp and Colm and Kelleher, and basically it is. I don't know exactly if it's a follow up to the book or if it came out at the same time, but there is some additional information. I watched about 10 minutes of it and I was like, I can't do this. I already have my script. I can't do this right now. So at some point when we all get through the documentary, maybe we'll come back and revisit the topic and we'll talk about the stuff that's in there that Jake's not going to be able to get to today because he's only halfway through. All right. Moving on. Kid, how are you today?
Fantastic. I was almost a little offended. Almost a little offended. But we're cool.
Is it because you thought I called you a child?
Yeah. I may look like one, but that like come on.
Jump into conclusions, Kenzar.
I mean, I am the kid after all.
You are the kid, but you're not the child.
Yeah,
That's
You
sauce
tried
is
that
next.
once on me already,
I'm the
so
man-child.
you blame me?
I guess not.
Yeah.
All right. Have you dove into Skinwalker Ranch since the last time we talked?
No, I was about neck deep in my research project this weekend, so
True. I think we're doing that next week, right?
sure.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
no. Possibly and possibly not. I might have a guest. I still have to confirm that they're still coming, but we'll talk about that when we get there.
Gonna throw Kenzar right in the trash and grab some rando. That's right.
So before we get into my script for the night, does anybody have anything to build on from the last couple episodes?
I'm good.
All right. Well, let's dive into some of the cool stuff that I found. Now, the format for today is going to be slightly different than what we normally do for the back end of episodes because there's so many different theories out there about Skinwalker Ranch. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to, or I will, read off a theory, a popular theory, talk about it a little bit, and then we will discuss before we move on to the next theory. Everyone understand? Good to go?
Yes.
Crystal.
And then at the end, if I fail to hit on a theory that one of you guys have heard or one of you guys believe, feel free to bring it up then. And then afterwards, we'll talk about our true feels and we'll get all emotional and probably have to cry. No, I'm just kidding. We'll be good. All right, let's jump in. And let's start the night off with the top of the page, because I'm at the bottom, the media frenzy. So, when Terry Sherman decided to go public in 1996 about what was happening on his ranch, his decision landed on relaying the details to a reporter by the name of Zach Van Eck of the Deseret News. This newspaper that Terry decided to confide in was Utah's second largest newspaper at the time. This, of course, would propel what seemed to be an outrageous story into the Associated Press and eventually around the country. Newspapers and radio stations from every corner of the U.S. reported on the now known UFO hotspot that was the Sherman Ranch. Terry's reasoning for telling his property story was to ensure that if this was a military or black ops entity, maybe the publicity would force them to move somewhere else. Another thing he wanted out of going public was help from anyone who may have answers about the activity he and his wife had been witnessing. This would ultimately bring upon the arrival of Robert Bigelow and the NIDS team. And with the arrival of NIDS, rumors about what was really happening on the ranch began to run rampant throughout the local area. One such rumor was that a scientific team was brought in to investigate the reptilian aliens that were discovered on the Sherman Ranch. And in one large national scientific magazine, an article was published spreading false rumors that the Nevada military base known as Area 51 was moving to a remote location in northeastern Utah, and that the NIDS team at the Sherman Ranch was really there to make preparations for the shift. In 2002, George Knapp was given permission and completed 2 articles for publication about the happenings on Skinwalker Ranch and the involvement of the NIDS team. The 2-part article, titled Path of the Skinwalker, was published in back-to-back issues of the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Nevada's largest newspaper at the time. This once again propelled the topic of Skinwalker Ranch into the limelight of the country and the rest of the world. The articles would end up being reprinted in England, Brazil, France, and Portugal, and would also cause an influx of spin-off articles to be written in various other forms of media, such as magazines, radio shows, and private online chat rooms. This was the most dangerous thing to happen to the ranch. One particular chat room began spreading rumors about the NIDS team and their board members, saying that they were a part of a secret cabal known as the Aviary. The sole task and duty of this secret cabal was to control the information about the extraterrestrials on Earth. But the rumors wouldn't stop there. Another round of scuttlebutt arose that the NIDS team had made contact with a spaceman and that they were now actively experimenting with genetic engineering as a way to explain the uptick in cattle mutilations in the area. And the really scary thing is that some well-known news outlets began to report on these ideas in a way that caused many people to believe that what they were reporting was factual information about the ranch and the NIDS investigations. Throughout all of the beatings the ranch and the NIDS investigative team would take by the media, the ranch did become extremely famous in many circles. The NIDS team suffered a long, almost year-long drought, which they easily pointed the finger at the waves of amateur researchers and quote-unquote professional reporters that showed up on and around the ranch to do a little bit of research for themselves. But as months went by and the huge influx of new and strange visitors to the ranch and the basin receded, activity once again began to spring up on Skinwalker Ranch. But the argument that many people make about Skinwalker Ranch is that most of, or all of the stories coming from the ranch are just that, stories. A decent amount of people do believe that the lore behind the ranch is no more than publicity brought on by a rampantly spreading and growing false narrative spun by Terry Sherman himself. Others blame George Knapp and his articles, while some more recent disbelievers think that the influx in books, magazines, TV shows, and podcasts on the subject do a disservice to the paranormal community for even reporting on such an outlandish topic. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the media and entertainment business might be to blame for the popularity and the happenings at Skinwalker Ranch?
Yeah, dude, 100%. I mean, we're doing it right now, right? But for sure, things like the Discovery Channel or the History Channel or whatever channel, right? Like that, it's going to bring a lot of attention. And this is the problem that I have with a lot of different things, right? People might call a lot of them conspiracies, but when you're talking about things like ancient aliens or, you know, like lost history or anything like that, it goes through this mainstream filter and becomes some weird diluted version of what it really is. And I feel like a lot of the stories that we could probably find about Skinwalker Ranch are just people kind of, even if they believe it, like they're experiencing something through that filter that they've already been fed through the media.
Wes, what do you think, man? Do you think that the media and us podcasters are the reason why this thing has blown up so much?
Oh, for sure. I mean, even back in the 90s, there had to have been, you know, rumors and stuff, you know, all throughout the town, you know, the closest town to them. And I'm sure even back then it probably traveled way further than just their, you know, the city they lived outside of. And from then till now, you know, media's reach and growth has been exponential. So with that, things like this that really capture people's imagination are just blowing up constantly, and it's never going to stop.
Now, we'll go to Kid. Kid, do you think that the media may actually be the reason why these things are happening? Not necessarily why it's so popular, but do you believe that maybe... No? Okay.
No. I as you were asking that question, I just thought back to the owners before the Shermans. There wasn't a whole lot on their story, but their entire house, closets, windows, doors, inside and outside, all dead bolted.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think media had much involvement as to what was going on, but it is like a game of telephone. So the moment the media got involved, things probably became embellished and blew up. And media, in my opinion, is the reason Skinwalker Ranch is so popular and so well known. But it's not the reason things were happening. No, it's not the reason things started happening or kept happening. There was something going on beforehand.
Jake, what do you think about this layer that the media adds?
100%, I think it has to do with it. So I'm watching this documentary by George Knapp. And what's interesting to me is that I'm also watching the show, right? The Skinwalker show. It's like 3 seasons or whatever. Both of them are on Hulu. And in the show, they're seeing UFOs. They're dealing with, like, they're getting all their readings, their radiation exposure, all this sort of stuff, right? And George Knapp says within the first 30 minutes of his his documentary, that the legend is that when new people come on the ranch, there's an increase in activity. And he said right off the bat, while I was there, I experienced zero paranormal or otherworldly type events. It just didn't happen. Although he was able to interview people all over the town that had seen stuff and had experiences, and he's able to interview people from the original NIDS team. And one of them even makes a presence on the TV show as well. And I have to wonder what the motivation is, right? Because I agree with what Jeff said, that, you have an already set in stone bias. You might see things through that lens of that bias. But then when it comes into, like, the TV show, right? I'm sitting here watching it. I just got into season 2. And I mean, they have seen all kinds of stuff. But how much of it is actually real and how much of it is edited? And the reason why I ask that is because what's the motivation? Is the History Channel paying the owner of the ranch now to be there to shoot this show? Is there a motivation money-wise to get as many seasons out of it? And in which case, increase on the flair and the pizzazz, because no one wants to see a show where literally nothing happens, right?
Right.
It would last maybe a season and then it would be torn apart. So is any of this stuff, flubbed, and whatever? But it's like, even like they're showing the UFO, it's a bright light in the sky and they're showing it. And then what would have been originally the stillest camera in the world, it's on a tripod, it's panning around, you see these people, and then when it's focused on this UFO, it's just going like this the whole time. It's just shaking around. And then there's this point where this UFO is, and they keep saying it shows up in the exact same spot and it doesn't move. And then the camera goes like this, it whips down real quick, and they're like, there it goes. And then immediately afterwards they say, oh, it's back, it's right there, it's in the exact same spot. So it didn't move at all, but the camera jerks really quick to make it appear that it just shoots out of the screen, when in reality nothing actually happened. So was that thing even existing? Did they send something up into the atmosphere like that weather balloon in the first season with a reflective lining on it to make it look like something is out there reflecting the sun like a UFO? How much of this thing is actually real? I mean, people have their own stories and experiences and all sorts of stuff, but I think when it comes to adding media into that and money and contracts and all kinds of stuff, the level of craziness goes right through the roof. So when you get out of this level of, this is a place where weird stuff happens all the time, to, well, I don't know if any of this is actually happening at all, like any of this is actually real, because if there's money involved, there has extreme motivation to start just goofing off and doing whatever to make content, right? So, like I said, there's things from the documentary that have changed my opinion on what's going on, but it's still hard for me to grasp, what's actually happening versus what's being made up or what's being exaggerated due to the media's presence and the, extreme, levels of interest that are included now.
So here's my problem. Well, I'll just kind of take a side note here to talk about the TV show. My problem with the TV show is that the Shermans owned the property from 94 to 96, right? 94, 95, and 96, roughly 3 years. And what we get is a couple books off of it, but still the happenings kind of come in these pockets. Like there are vast amounts of time, like up to a year, where there's just nothing. There's gaps of months and weeks of just nothing. But you show up to this television show on the History Channel, and every episode something's happening. As if it's just conveniently happening every week or every day. I think that they're only there for about a month out of the entire year for every season. Could be wrong with that, but I know it's a limited amount of time, and within that limited amount of time you have more stuff happen than what would happen in a year for the Shermans.
Right.
And that's where I find it hard to believe that the TV show is as legitimate as it claims to be. Not necessarily just because of the money factor, because that does add a layer to the bullshittery, obviously. But I just find it hard to believe that something's happening so much, especially when the owners after Bigelow took over, it died way down. Didn't disappear. It still happened. But it almost went nil. That's my 2 cents in it. Does anybody else have anything to add before we move on to the next one?
I would say Jake has definitely hit it on the head. I mean, but I don't think that's necessarily the ranch that's in it for the money. The media, whoever it is, they're going to make their own money. And I think that's really what's pushing it probably more than anything nowadays. But yeah, and I have to definitely agree with you, Jeremy, with the things ramping up all of a sudden when there's a TV show being filmed there. When there's been however amount of time in between whatever events, phenomena, whatever you want to call it. I mean, everything's dramatized because people love drama. So that's going to literally be in anything you see on TV. It doesn't matter if it's the History Channel, HBO, or even pick your favorite news channel. Things are going to be ramped up a bit because that's what draws people in.
I'll tell you what, though, as much as I look at like the TV show versus I didn't read the book, but Jeremy went pretty thoroughly through it, and Wes went thoroughly through it. I'll tell you, there are some parts that have really bothered me. Like as far as like freaked me right the heck out. Like last night, I went to bed right after watching, I think it was season 2, episode 2. And basically what happened was they were doing this, they had this Jewish guy or a rabbi that was doing a bunch of prayers and stuff at night. And they had the Homestead 2 focused on with, what was it? Like a heat lens or whatever on the camera,
Yep.
And you see the entire house and everything around this house, pretty much like, was it bright or dark red or light red is the hottest, and purple and black are the coldest. And you see the trees and the surrounding area, and it's all relative. So it's like, the temperatures may be just so, but my hand would probably be red, and then everything expanding outward from my hand would get darker and darker and darker because it would be, less hot, right, than my body temperature. So it's all relative to each other as far as I know. But basically the trees and the surrounding area, the rest of the house was red because it was warmer than the focal point, which was the doorway, and it was just deep oil slick black with purple around it like an eyeball, or if you could imagine it, a being standing in that doorway. And even as they're approaching the house, everyone goes running over there to go investigate and see, you know, why this is doing this. Is the equipment messing up or whatever? You can see their red images, their silhouettes of these 4 individuals running towards this point, and you can see them all right here. And they go in there, they say it's like, you know, 20, 30 degrees colder. It's like, it's crazy cold stuff. That one creeped me right the heck out. And then I had to go to bed afterwards, and it kept me awake for like 45 minutes where I'm just like, something's going to jump out at me. You know, like there are some points where I don't entirely disbelieve that there's craziness going on that ranch. But again, it's hard for me to know what is real and what's going on, and then what is fake and made up, or at least exaggerated. Because I mean, just the simple fact of, if you guys have seen any movies in the last couple years, most of what you're seeing is CGI. Like, these people are, it's the actors in front of green screens. Like, everything is CGI, with the exception of like the Top Gun movie where they're actually flying in jets. Like, everything is CGI now. So even if it looks so real, you could look up the behind the scenes and stuff, and it's all like, you know, there's no buildings back there. It's all a green screen. It's nuts. So really, we've come into this area where, you know, a Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot film from, you know, the 60s or 70s, whenever that one was shot, is just like, you know, 67, I think, is just like, you know, it's not that anymore, where that's an actual river, that's an actual surrounding area. You know, we can dispute whether or not the Bigfoot is actually real, but everything else around it is real. Nowadays, you'd see a video like that, and literally nothing could be real. It could all be CGI. It could all be made on a computer. And, you know, and there we go. So I have the hardest time seeing that stuff and being like, this is actually happening, because as far as I know, the scientists right there could just be getting paid to pretend like there's a UFO right there, and they could just have a spot, you know, in editing that they put inside the, you know, whatever. And it's like, it's rough. It's hard to know, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of to add on to that too, like you were saying they're only there for like maybe a month.
I don't know the exact time frame, but I know it's limited.
It's a short period of time. Okay, so it's a short period of time. I have a hard time believing that in this month, 2-month time span that's just it's like that's the season for things to happen. I don't think that's happening. I don't think it's that frequent. I think it's more sporadic. So for all we know, like Jay said, they're just exaggerating a bunch of things and embellishing a bunch of stuff, and they're only getting maybe 2 episodes worth of footage out of 2 months, 3 months expedition. So yeah, no, I'm having a hard time believing that media is telling the truth about Skinwalker Ranch, but it's definitely pulling attention to Skinwalker Ranch, which is usually the point of media, is to pull attention to something.
All right. What do you guys think? Move on?
Yeah, I'm satisfied.
All right. It gets fun from here. I think this one's for old Jeffrey. Military psyop. It is no surprise that many believe that Skinwalker Ranch and the Uinta Basin lay home to a playground for experiments of top secret military weaponry, gear, and techniques. Aircraft that defy physics, cloaked figures, stealthy lights and craft, gateways into other dimensions, chimera-like creatures, and highly lifelike holographic displays. This explanation goes back to the original owners of the ranch. Before the Shermans, the Myers family were the owners of Skinwalker Ranch. This well-documented hotspot for all things paranormal and supernatural seemed to not be an issue for the Myers family. Could the Myers have signed an agreement with the U.S. government that allowed the use of their rural property for top-secret experiments? Many believe yes. Again, Conrad Bauer comes to play hardball by bringing up the facts that secret and public nuclear testing took place in remote areas of the region, and the world's most famous secret military facility, Area 51, settles just over the state lines in Groom Lake, Nevada. The government seems to have a soft spot for remote desert locations for their secret doings. Garth Myers, who inherited the property from the original owners, famously told Terry Sherman to not dig on the property. Those who are familiar with the TV show Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch on the History Channel know that the current research crew members are still wary about the concept of digging on the property due to documented issues that happen when they do. Could there be a top secret underground military facility under the property of Skinwalker Ranch? Nuclear bunkers were speckled all throughout the country during the years of the Cold War, many of which were made into bases and bunkers, and many of those were in the remote desert areas of the West. One common occurrence that the Shermans famously complained about was the sound of machinery and banging coming from what they thought was under their feet. Kelleher and Knapp made a claim in their book Hunt for the Skinwalker that the NIDS team employed top-notch remote viewers from various backgrounds to view the ranch at different points in time. NIDS claimed that many of these remote viewers came back saying that there was constantly a military presence on the land and that they were doing some very bad things there and were primarily working out of the southeastern portion of the ranch. As a side note to this, a few of them pointed out the central homestead as a hotspot for various degrees of strange and or evil activity. And to clear that up a little bit there, Jacob, the central homestead is Homestead 2.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, Jeffrey?
Yeah, man, I'm with that, dude. I mean, honestly, when you said gateways or portals to other dimensions, that's totally what I think is going on. And I think that because it's on a ley line, I think you said it was on or around a ley line, right? You have remote viewers seeing this, which I fully have no problem believing. Just getting into all the, MK Ultra and the gateway process stuff and Project Stargate and all these different programs where they were using remote viewers and all kinds of stuff. So that's totally real. Yeah, man, I could totally see that there's some probably a secret underground base. I mean, okay, so like the Montauk project, this is a perfect example. They did this project, this secret project, using the Montauk chair and all this stuff at Camp Hero, but Camp Hero was supposedly an abandoned military base at the time.
Yep.
So if you have the country dotted with these secret underground facilities, some of them are no longer in use, then you have some black budget program who it's not really the military, it's unknown
Contractors or even
exactly
an entity higher than.
right, correct. And they're down there probably doing some kind of portals, think Stranger Things or something, I'm with it.
So just to make a connection for those that are new to the Infinite Rabbit Hole, those that may not understand what remote viewing is, it is basically the use of, correct me if I'm wrong, scientific or psychic means of being able to view a location separate from your own by psychic means. That's roughly correct, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And the government's even done things like psychic assassin programs where they would use remote viewing to locate somebody, like a dignitary or somebody from another country, and they'd be able to pinpoint pretty much where they were on the other side of the world.
Project Stargate
somewhere. Yes, exactly.
Project Stargate was a really big one, and we talked a little bit more about that. I actually am the only surviving member of that episode, but we went on to
Everyone else is dead.
we went on to another podcast, and I bring that up in my little spiel later. But moving on, let's go, Wes. What do you think, man? Oh, you're yep, muted.
Excuse me, I'm an idiot. Totally pro. Anyway, I'm with Jeff where this ranch is located. It's basically just like a tear between, some other dimension or maybe multiple dimensions. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows how any of that works? But, what leads me to believe that it's maybe multiple is just out of all the phenomenon described, there is multiple that are very similar to each other. There's the giant, wolf-like creature, or the multiple wolf-like creatures, the flying orbs that were, usually blue or red in color, and then you had like the predator thing, and whatever was invisible to the naked eye running through the herd, splitting them like a shark in a school of fish. I don't know. There's just multiple things coming out, slipping through into our world for short periods of time, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's strange because everything that has happened on the ranch. I'm gonna jump a little ahead right now. I'm not gonna give you my full view on this, but everything that's happened on the ranch can kind of be explained by some sort of military black budget project, right? So, like Wes was just talking about, the predator-like creature that's walking through the cattle, or the ones that jumped up in front of the guy who was meditating right outside the Sherman household and got screamed at right in his face. Cloaking, right? That's something that we know the government spends money on. They spend money on cloaking devices, drones, gates to other dimensions. That a hotspot that could possibly be a thin veil between dimensions is going to be an attractant to military or other government entities. So, I mean, that's my
genetic testing, man.
Thank you.
As far as we know, that they might be creating a creature that has the ability to cloak itself. They might be literally creating skinwalkers in some secret base underground. I mean, how do we know?
Right.
So,
Jake, what do you think, man?
I disagree almost entirely.
Ooh, good.
I don't believe that the U.S. government has developed a way to cloak individuals or crafts like that.
Not the government.
Well,
okay.
If it was possible, I would assume that every time it's like a SEAL team or a Ranger, whatever team, battalion, I don't even know what they call them, but every time they're sent in to do something, like take a high value target, we would have 0 casualties. There wouldn't be any, there wouldn't be any. I mean, can you shoot something that you can't see, that just, unless you just spray randomly and wildly? But I think it'd be utilized. I mean, for the last 2 weeks, we had dozens of crazy aircraft on my base. I couldn't talk about it while they were here, but we had F-35s, we had F-117s, taking off all day long. They were doing drills. They were, shooting off rockets into the bay, all kinds of stuff. Those things would be cloaked. We wouldn't be able to see them. If they're so secretive that they're telling us we can't take pictures of them, we wouldn't be able to see those things, right? There is no way to me that they actually have that sort of technology. Now, not saying that they're not working on it, but they can't actually do that. Now, the idea that there's a base underneath there. And on my base, we can't dig in our own backyards. I live on base. We can't dig on our own backyards. They say that anything more than 6 inches, and we might hit unexploded ordnance, because this base used to be utilized for bombing runs here in Southern California.
They just build houses right on top of it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they're like, they declare it to be safe.
It was cheap, bro.
Yeah, I mean, but this base, I think, came around during World War II, and they used to utilize it for bombing runs and all kinds of stuff. And so to me, that would make sense with the whole radiation zones that they keep experiencing, right? I'm not saying that they were dropping nukes, because that place probably wouldn't be habitable for quite some time. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other types of radioactive weaponry that could have been utilized or things like that, right? And then, so that's in itself a situation that, for me, there could be a base, sure, but I would see it more as like there's actually a hazard to digging there, not you're going to find our secret. Because if there's such an issue where they're going to find a secret like that, I don't think that area would be available to be sold, right? Because say they find some underground concrete bunker, who cares, right? If it's so secretive that they can't dig because they might discover something, that stuff isn't going to be available for some random Joe Schmo to come across, right? Now, a rift in time or a portal, I believe, because I'm more focused on like this might be a increase in demonic activity. Why it's focused on this location, I don't know, but those beings in my mind are way more powerful than needing some rift or some portal between dimensions to travel across. If they're not bound to our physics and our way of things working because they're on a different dimensional plane, then they should be able to go in between with no issues without having to rely on some government portal or some, void opening up where they can just travel in between the two. So I almost entirely disagree with everything that was said right there.
Jeffrey is jumping out of his pants. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that, Jake, I think you're thinking about this all wrong, man. I don't think that the government is doing this at all. I think that it's totally contractors. It's black budget stuff. It is not on the books. It is not our government. It's probably taxpayer funded, but it's totally off the radar. And they most likely do have this technology, and they just haven't been offered the right amount of trillions for it from any government, or they are just working on it. But there's so much there. And then like the portals and the demons and that, like, yeah, I totally think that you're right, but also that doesn't mean that we are not peering into other dimensions and other data or information or entities are coming through that might be skinwalkers, man.
How many trillions do you need? We watch our government print off
dude,
money like it's toilet paper. It's like, here's some more toilet paper.
Saying that just because the stuff that we know about isn't cloaked with this type of technology doesn't mean that it's not being utilized. The secrets, the real secrets that are happening, especially with like, special forces or something like that, we don't know what is really going on. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not just saying like your Delta Force Navy SEALs guys, but if there's something that really has to get done with zero casualties, guaranteed you they're cloaked. And they're probably super soldiers and all the rest of it. And we just have no idea that this unit even exists.
So I just want to point out that if you're above the government, right, if you're some of these secret black op entities, that money probably isn't what you need. I don't even think they're using money to do what they need to do.
Probably
data services and data is literally the value, because I believe, now that I'm no longer a shill, I can say some of my true thoughts here instead of shill Jacob over here just not believing anything.
Here we go. Jeremy's about to go to prison for this. Here we go. Let's hear it.
No,
canceled.
I won't go too deep into my thoughts, but I don't think money has a value to these entities. I don't think that any value, any quantity of money is worth anything to them. They don't use it. I mean, they want something done, they just do it. I mean, how do they get the goods and whatnot? Yes, that's when the government comes in and prints off money and uses it, because the dogs that are out there making these things or whatever the materials used to produce this stuff needs money. Like, we need money to live. We're just eating out of the government's hands. But if you're one of these black op institutions, they don't use money, dude. There's no way. Data and services is what they need. And honestly, services isn't really even a problem, and data is not really even a fucking problem. I don't even think they really have a currency. They're never going to get rid of their stuff. As for why is this property even for sale? Well, I mean, it depends on what they're doing. If this is a hot spot for all of this quote unquote paranormal military psyop stuff, why not put somebody on top of there to make it look as average as possible? Why not sell it to the owners before the Shermans and say, hey, just live your lives. What if they were part of the deal? This is why, if you're going to dig on this property, you need to let them know. Because they're literally fed by this entity that lives right below them. Whether it's there or not anymore, because another little spoiler from my opinion on this is that the more recent we get, the more unlikely that I believe Skinwalker Ranch is really anything. I think that during the Shermans and during like up to 5-10 years ago, I think we were dealing with some pretty cool stuff there at Skinwalker Ranch. I don't think it's completely gone, but the more we dive into the History Channel show, the more less believable I think it is for recent. And I don't think that government entity is there anymore. I think they're long gone.
I want to hear Kenzar's thoughts, and then I have a small
I'm so sorry,
follow-up.
kid. I'm so sorry.
I have a small follow-up afterwards.
Okay. You guys have pretty much said everything that was going through my head, except one thing that I latched onto. I'm really stuck on these deadbolts, okay, guys? Why, I couldn't tell you. But maybe that's why, kind of adding to the Myers in on the whatever was going on there, maybe that's why there were deadbolts on the other side of everything, was so that government or whoever, Black Op, whoever is doing some experimenting on the land tonight, we're gonna lock you guys in the house.
Or maybe it was given to them, to the Myers, as a way to protect themselves.
Or that, yeah, like,
I think that's
this is
more
what
realistic.
we're gonna do. This is your only, like, this is one way you can help protect yourself. We'll let you know when we're doing stuff. Lock yourself in.
I think that it's possible that the first owners, maybe it was even something as simple as like witness relocation. You're like, oh, we got to put you somewhere. We got this program happening over here. We'll just plant you on top of it, build your little ranch. Here you go.
Right.
And,
you shut the fuck up and we provide protection.
Exactly. And then you get multiple owners and people just don't know the situation. Yeah. And like Jeremy said, maybe they're gone now. So I don't know. I'm with it.
Follow-ups, anybody, before we move on?
No, I looked ahead. You're going to be covering this topic that would probably be more appropriate to drop it in. So,
okay. Yep. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to the next part. We'll dive into some Native American curses. So, in the oral histories of both the Navajo and the Ute tribes, this is how the Skinwalker is birthed into reality. The two neighboring tribes famously killed, stole, and fought with each other for years before Europeans ever set foot in the region. The Navajo were forced from the area of the Uinta Basin by the Utes, but before they left, they set a curse upon the land that brought the dreaded Skinwalker to torment the Utes. This curse is still believed heavily to this day by the local natives in the region, but although the phenomenon has claimed the lives of many animals on the property, there has never been a report of a human being dying due to one of these phenomena. Yes, it is true that people have been hospitalized or have gone missing, but nobody has ever died that we know of. Why is this important? Well, because the Skinwalker is known as a brutal and unforgiving witch that will not hesitate to slaughter anyone it comes across. So, if nobody has ever been recorded as dying, how can it be the curse of the Skinwalker that is to blame? So, Skinwalker Ranch, everybody. Let's start with Kid, since we put her on the back burner the last two times. Kid, okay. What do you think about the name Skinwalker Ranch and the relation to the native lore of the Skinwalker?
I really like this story. I think the relation might just be because there could have been some, for all we know, it could be a native burial ground. And that's just what's happening is that, and they put this Skinwalker curse on them, and they just ran with it. And that's why it's Skinwalker Ranch. But I really like this one. This one's fun. This is the one that a lot of people really latch onto. A lot of people call them flesh pedestrians. Because the whole, you talk about something and you manifest it and it starts to show up. And
Tulpa.
So so people don't want to say Skinwalker because they're afraid that it'll show up, so they call it a flesh pedestrian instead, which I think is honestly ridiculous, but
It's way worse.
I really like this story because it to me is just it's another Wendigo story, but kind of cooler, honestly.
I don't agree. But anyways.
That's what when I hear the Skinwalker creature, I kind of think of a Wendigo at the same time. They're similar but completely different.
So the Skinwalker is a witch, right? Basically somebody who has killed somebody of their own blood, earning the right of a evil practitioner of magic. And the Wendigo is basically a cannibal zombie.
Well, yeah, but I mean in the sense of like
it's a spirit.
Yeah, the whole paranormal aspect of it. They're similar, but they're different, and that's what it kind of reminds me of, and that's why I kind of like this story, this portion of it.
Same, but different.
I don't know if there's something out there, but it's kind of cool to think.
Right on, gentlemen, free for all. Who wants up?
Yeah, I think I think there's something to that. Honestly, I think the fact that it's on a ley line tells me that there's something going on there, and has been something going on there for probably a million years or more, millions of years. I don't know. So to think that going back a few hundred years, a civilization of people were aware of some energies in this area, so they would, cast this curse upon somebody else in this area. Makes sense that maybe there was some power to that. Maybe there was some power to that curse, and something was happening. And then later down the road, with technology and all this research and shit, then we come in and this is a perfect place for us to do our experiments with this interdimensional whatever, or whatever it is, right? So I can see a connection between the two being a thing. Again, it's a great movie. This would be I'm sure it's a movie, but just that aspect of it would be a great movie. Like the Native Americans, and then they put the curse, and then like 200, 300 years later, you have, scientists in a deep underground bunker fucking around with some entities, in the same spot.
Right on.
I'm with it. Yeah.
What about the other two boys?
Wes.
Don't everyone speak at once.
Yeah, you flubbed that one. Wes.
Tongue tied over here, okay?
Shit. I was gonna say, I think I still believe that it's just some interdimensional crossroads and is bleeding over into our world. And maybe it's been happening within a certain window, and say that window was before the Native Americans in the area, and that's where they end up witnessing this crazy events in this area, and that's where those tales came from, of the Skinwalker. I don't know. I believe a lot of old tall tales, or I don't know another word for it.
Lores and mythologies.
Lores and mythologies. There's some truth in where they came from. It's not just pulled directly out of nothing. There's always something inspiring, something else. And I think their tales of the Skinwalker is just things that they have experienced, and now we're finding out that others that lived in that area, they experienced similar things. Yeah.
Jacob,
I think that a couple things. So if I'm going with the idea that I have of demonic activity, literally, like at the beginning of the Bible, the angels that became demons basically tried to follow Satan into becoming like God, and they were cast down to the earth, right? So before people even started spreading out. There was demons all over the earth. Not in hell. There's actually hell's vacant right now, but so the Native Americans would have had to have run-ins with demonic activity, probably quite frequently, because they engaged with things like witchcraft and all kinds of stuff, right? And rituals, and not all the time, but certainly there was that sort of stuff, that sort of aspect to their belief system. So, why would they not have some sort of lore or legends to describe the things that they saw or the things that they experienced? And if these things are happening on this ranch, then it makes sense that they would attribute it to, their explanations for the things they were experiencing or the things that they saw or, whatever. And maybe it's just happy circumstance, and maybe it's, there's some legitimacy to it. I forgot what the other point that I was going to make was. But funny thing, I'm following, since I'm running the show's Instagram, or at least I post on it, I have us following hashtag cryptozoology. And to Kenzar's point of the not Skinwalker, the Wendigo, a tattoo artist posted a tattoo he did, this crazy like half sleeve of this, Wendigo like you'd see in any movie, where it was covered in fur, it had the deer head on it and stuff, and it was like ripping something apart, and it was all splayed out like this. And everyone's like, oh, super cool tattoo. And he's like, hashtag Wendigo and all this stuff. And I almost posted the comment, won't it suck when the person who has that tattoo finds out that's not even close to what a Wendigo looks like? But I didn't. I left it alone. But I was thinking about it. I was like, well, that's a cool deer monster. It has no relation to the Wendigo whatsoever.
That's kind of what I was getting at, though, is like people don't really understand they don't go out of their way to understand the difference. So a lot of people, you just say Skinwalker and they immediately intertwine the two. A Skinwalker is a Wendigo is a Skinwalker. I like the stories, both of them, because they're both very cool stories, and the paranormal aspect of both of it, the spiritual aspect of all of it, and then it ties back into native lore. I think that alone, is just awesome. So that's kind of why I like this story a little bit more. That's why I kind of like compared the two to each other, is they're both native lore. They both share some sort of evil looking creature, whether that be a paranormal thing or a witch, doesn't matter. Matter. But again, to add to that is people they just intertwine the two. A Skinwalker is a Wendigo is a Skinwalker. They're all the same to people, which is kind of sad, honestly.
Well, yeah. I remembered what I was going to say, too. What if the reason for being told they can't dig is not because of a military base, but because it was discovered at some point that is an Indian burial ground? Now, whether or not that area could be sold and purchased, I don't know. But I know that if something is discovered to be a Native American burial ground, that it cannot be dug up. So that would be an interesting thing. Or for Jeff, what if it was discovered that there was giant bones on that property? Because I was watching this this documentary by George Knapp, and they said right away that area is known for having liquid carbons and dinosaur bones. So if it was discovered that there was giant bones in that location, that would be another reason to have the motivation to tell them, don't go digging around. Maybe we can't contain a 700-acre piece of property from being purchased or sold or whatever it is, or something like that. But I mean, to go towards the Native American side, I mean, it shows in the show that there was pictographs on the rocks. They get into it in season 2. They show that, hey, this looks like the skyline and stuff. This looks like the Big Dipper. This looks like the constellation Draco. So there was pictographs on there. So it was inhabited by by the Native Americans at some point. So could they be buried there? Sure. You know, could there be something more to that, like giant skeletons, and that has to be tightly under wraps? I don't think that they could own and, well, maybe they could. They, right, the big they, own and control every single area where giant skeletons have ever been found, because according to, you know, local sources, it's like everywhere. But that would be a motivation to tell the original owners of the property, you can own this, but you can't dig or else something bad will happen, and just leave it at that. Maybe it was originally, if you find something while you're digging around here, we're going to come kill all of you, you know, something bad will happen or something like that. I don't know.
So does anybody else have anything to add? Because this is a great segue into the next part.
Nope.
Okay. Jeff, here's another one for you, buddy. It's because I love you. It's the beard. Look, trying to become beard brothers. All right. You ready?
Jeff, let's go.
Jeff, I think you're going to like this one. I don't know if you're going to like jump on board or be against it, but I think this is interesting. Because I found this in one source and I wasn't going to include it, but I kept it for you, buddy.
Let's go.
Freemasons. The secret society / fraternity known as the Freemasons are a mysterious group with branches all over the world and time. One of the biggest ties between the Freemasons and the Uinta Basin is the presence of one of the post-Civil War all Native African American regiments of the Western expansion effort established in 1866. These all-black units became known to the Plain Indians of Utah as the Buffalo Soldiers and were known to have been almost completely Freemason, which was strange for the time as Freemasons were typically older, rich white men. Nevertheless, the majority of the Buffalo Soldiers were devout Freemasons. I know that we haven't had a chance yet to really dive into the background of Freemasons, but as a very quick outline of their past that may have a slight connection to the happenings of Skinwalker Ranch, it has been long theorized that the Freemasons are tied up in occult practices and that happenings in the Uinta Basin holds a secret connection to the society. The best argument for this is a symbol etched into a nearby ridge that has recently been described as Skinwalker Ridge that resembles a known popular Masonic symbol. The symbol in question has the letter V with an inverted V overlaid on top, with one V made from an engineering compass and the other made by a tool known as a square. Get this, the famous symbol is known as the square and compass. The location of this etching is so far up that no man could stand and conduct the etching, even with a tall ladder, but someone could do it if they were suspended off the side of the ridge. It is theorized that this double V etching was left by the Buffalo Soldiers during one of their many stays in the Uinta Basin and is over 100 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. To be honest with you, I'm kind of beyond the Freemason thing to a point. They're everywhere. Everybody's a Freemason. I mean, I know people who are Freemasons, and most Freemasons have no idea like what the deal is. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be a real high level to know anything.
Right. So let's talk about those guys, because you're right. There is a lot of Freemasons out there, and a lot of people don't even know what the history of Freemasonry is and what's really going on within the organization. But what about the higher ups? I mean, occult practices have been tied to Freemasonry.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's my opinion that these secret societies, not just Freemasons, but there's a lot of them. What they do is they purposely put people in positions or they recruit people who are in positions that are around interesting things to them. Now, since they're into occult practices, they might very well be interested in this area that may have a long history of weird, you know, entities and rituals being done or whatever the case is. So it wouldn't surprise me if they knew about this and were doing everything they could to get their members in that area or in positions that would be involved in that area one way or the other, and probably still to this day. But I wouldn't say that this is like a Freemason run operation as much as it's more like they just like to have their hands in everything, you know?
What about anybody else? Anything on the Freemasons?
I just want to say that I'm not surprised they're involved. They got their hands in everything, so.
Yeah, I don't think it has any relation because I mean, like even like the Masonic temples, right? Most Freemasons probably have no idea. Like, there's a lot of Freemasons in the Navy, like in the E7 and above club, right? You see a lot of them on license plates. And I don't think that most people really know what is going on at the top levels, but you'd have to assume that the people that are running like the Masonic lodges, they probably know quite a bit more about what's going on and stuff. I don't think you could be running a lodge and not have access to certain information. But you got to figure how many Masonic lodges are there all over the place. I mean, there's 3 within, a few miles of me here in SoCal, but this area in Southern California isn't anything like Skinwalker Ranch or the activity that's going around it. So if there's the same sort of practices being done all over the place, but there's only one Skinwalker Ranch, I don't think it has any relation whatsoever, besides that these people existed in the same location as Skinwalker Ranch.
Now, the reason, other than Jeff, that I did include this and why I find that there's importance here is because of the time frame. So this militarized unit was created to push natives out of the area. And you go back to the curse that was put on by one native group to another native group by way of the Skinwalker curse. Now, if you see this picture of the petroglyph, that's why I thought this was a good tie-in. It does look like the Masonic compass and square, or square and compass. Can it? I mean, is it? There's not 100%. And again, I wasn't going to include this if it wasn't for old Jeffrey here, just because I found it in one source, and I don't like including things that I can only find in one source because usually it's a little sketchy. But I find it interesting because of the time period and what the task was by the group.
Yeah, I think like Jake said, they just probably happened to be there, and this is more of a happenstance than not, but it also might be that somebody higher up put them there and that they were just there by happenstance.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that there's any real significance to that other than they just like to be involved in literally everything.
I gotcha. Wes, you got anything there, man?
I don't think the Freemasons are anything there's anything left of what they originally was. I mean, I don't know. I see all kinds of people that are Freemasons, and I'm pretty sure they have no idea what it's really about. So I don't really lend any credence to them really having any involvement.
Gotcha. All right, good to move on.
Good.
All right, let's get back to the weird shit. Parallel World Gateway. Here you go, Wes. We'll come to you first on this one, all right? Could the location be an area that nears a parallel world on a dimensional level that we cannot perceive? Remember, there have been a few documented reports of windows or portals opening up before someone or something comes out of it. In the book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, Kelleher and Knapp quote the physicist Michio Kaku's famous analogy of the anthill next to the superhighway. To paraphrase Mr. Kaku, he explains that not a single ant in an ant colony can perceive the idea or even notice the multi-lane superhighway being created and used right next to them, that not one of them could understand the usefulness and purpose of it, and that most likely none of them even notice it in their everyday lives. Could we be an ant colony with higher dimensional beings conducting their everyday business right next to us? Could Skinwalker Ranch be right next to another dimension's superhighway? What do you think, Wes?
I think that could be a pretty good explanation. I mean, yeah, it's just we're seeing things that we just have yet to understand, so of course it's going to be like, I don't know, chimp seeing fire for the first time or something. I don't know.
Fire.
It's just like, what in tarnation? What the hell is that? I don't know. I think definitely dimensions are crossing over or something like that, because all the different things we're seeing. It just, I don't know. There's too many different things. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Said it already 1,000 times, I guess. Me and Wes both pretty much said it. Jake, I mean, we've all said it, really, that this is a possibility. But the thing, when I think about this, the thing that sticks in my mind is like this image. One of the Marvel movies, forget which one it was, but it was like the big war, right? And all the portals opened up and all the characters were coming out. Endgame, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine like this rift opening in one of the stories from the last episodes, where this cloaked predator was parting these cattle, right, as it was walking through. And I'm like, okay, this thing's probing us, right? It's testing, and maybe it's been doing this for 1,000 years, right, or whatever. And then one day the freaking endgame portals are going to open, and it's just going to be an army of these cloaked werewolves just coming through. And maybe this happens like every 30,000 years, man. Like, that's all I can think is like,
are you explaining the plot of oh my god, I just forgot the name of the movie, one with the giant robots fighting the monsters? Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim.
It's like you're explaining the plot.
I don't know that I ever
Pacific
saw that,
Rim.
but it's kind of like the Fog.
It's a good movie.
It is a good movie.
You guys remember I think it was
one.
the Fog?
The Mist?
The Mist, that's what it was. Yeah, when the mist would come over, and then like these beings were basically coming from another dimension and like eating everybody.
Project Arrowhead was the name of the project. See, I've seen all kinds of strange paranormal supernatural movies, but never seen Star Wars.
Okay, we can't be friends. I quit, everybody. It's been nice.
Yeah, shame on you. Holy.
Signing off.
Never seen Star Wars, never seen Lords of the Rings.
What?
Never seen Lord of the Rings?
My cat's name is Gandalf.
Never seen Potter.
Millennium Falcon tattoo right here. Oh I am offended, Jeremy.
Yeah.
All right, listen. Put in the comments if you want us to make Jeremy sit down. Maybe we'll do it one day in the Discord server or something.
I will make him watch every single Star Wars movie,
starting with Tusk. We'll watch Tusk first.
Watch all the extended editions of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I just recently rewatched all of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Me too.
So good. So good.
Yeah. Movie month at Jeremy's house.
I'll read a book while we're watching the
movie. No.
We're going to have you in a chair. Like,
I guess we're going to have to tie you down to the chair and glue your eyelids open.
For the fans, Jeremy, you can't say no to the fans, dude. That's just disrespectful.
See,
to the fans,
The Mist is like one of my low-key favorite movies, though. I love that.
Okay, so getting back to the point, yeah, that's kind of like what I imagine with what's going on here, and not necessarily like that's what I think, but like I can see that being a thing, and I don't know why I'm talking about it, but it's fun.
Side note, I mean, when's the last time someone saw The Mist here? I've seen it recently, and
been
like
a few years.
The CGI is just fucking horrible.
Well, it was like a budget movie. It didn't have a big budget or anything.
Well, I mean, it's still based off a Stephen King novel. It
was like a one step above a sci-fi channel movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. But man, what a shit show of CGI. It's just absolutely horrible. Like when they're in the loading dock and that tentacles coming through and they're hitting it with the axe as it's got
it's a good movie, though.
It's a great movie. I love it.
They get the point across. As long as you get the point across, I'm okay with your shitty CGI. Like if it's at least acceptable and like I get what you're doing, okay, I'm in. I'm here.
I love it.
I don't know. Sometimes, anyways, go.
I'm sorry.
So yes, except it's not, one highway intersecting with another highway like that. Like there's the two roads and then they're touching each other at this point, and this point is Skinwalker Ranch. It's more like this, just intertwined fingers, because the angels, the demons, they're around us all the time. They are the reason for most of the stuff that's going on in the world right now. I'll get into more of it deeper when you force me to do like a Revelation type, or Matthew 24 type topic. But keep in mind, we're probably going to get canceled when I do. But it just, because I'm going to go, hard into it. And all the
we
things
should do it over at
biblical
Shadow Band.
that this earth is pushing away from, right? But it's more like this, right? It's everywhere. It's not, the ants and then the highways going past them, they don't notice it. It's that the ants are on the highway, in the highway is everywhere around the ants. So basically our worlds are completely intersected in every which way. It's just that we can't see it because it's invisible, because it's not in our, you could say, dimensional plane, or you could just say that spiritual beings without a physical body can't be perceived and seen. Maybe they can be seen through technology sources. Maybe that's what we see in the show and stuff. I don't know, but even then, I think that's kind of a stretch, right? Something's not bound by our physics. It would be able to escape our instruments that are bound by our physics, right? So I don't necessarily know if that's even a thing, but yeah, I don't think that in that regard, Skinwalker Ranch would have any sort of like special qualities to it, because it would be literally everywhere. Although, back to my original point, I do believe that there's increased activity there. The question that I have is why, and I researched it. Why would that be? And I came up with nothing. Right. So it's just like I don't know. Maybe it's just more focused on that area because there's a lot less stuff going on anyway. Like Jeremy, we talked about with the town that you just moved to, that I'm thinking about moving to after the Navy, and their biggest like thing in the last month or so was that there was a victor from the national mullet championship that got first place there, and that's huge news there. So if you could imagine any sort of alien activity or demonic activity or even strange natural phenomenon, whatever, happening in that area, it would be so focused on, because there's really, if you look at all the other stuff, there's not much else going on. And that's what draws me to the location, because I want some dang peace and quiet. But maybe this is similar to that. Other than, if you took all the Skinwalker stuff and you just kind of put it on a shelf and you looked at the town or the location or the county, the Uinta Basin County or Uinta County, I think it is, there would really be nothing going on. But because this is going on here, it's such huge news versus other areas where that stuff also occurs, but it's mixed in there with constant carjackings or constant murders or something like that, right? So yes, it appears in the news, but it's brushed over with other things that are constantly going on. So maybe it's just that lull of activity is a focal point for that, or the focus of it is then, all the stuff that happens everywhere else as well.
Okay, to talk about the really important thing that you said, yes, here in bumfuck nowhere, middle of Wisconsin, Menominee, Wisconsin, a kid, I'm not going to say his last name because I don't know the rules and everything, but the kid named Emmett won.
Emmett won? I saw all the pictures. He was cool.
USA Mullet Championship was won by a kid named Emmett right here in my new hometown of Menominee, Wisconsin. Fucking kid is an absolute stud. Mullet is a absolute beautiful
awesome.
He's got a mullet / mohawk, and it's like, holy shit, dude!
Awesome.
Like, what are you like? Who's gonna beat that? Nobody. That's why fucking Emmett won, because he's a badass.
Guard your moms.
I saw those pictures. They were badass. Yeah.
Yeah, 8-year-old Emmett's coming through. He's
all right. We'll give him 10 years, but then that mullet's gonna be just tearing it up.
But I wanted to say, kind of like to add on to what Jake was saying, the highway like being more intertwined like fingers. It's, as you were explaining that, I thought almost like a nesting doll situation. Every time you get deeper and deeper into it, you're finding a new highway, which is covered in a different dimension, and you just keep opening up different layers or opening up the next doll, and you find a new dimension. And that's just how I was relating to it in my head, was you were playing with a nesting doll.
All right. You guys ready to move on?
Yep.
All right. Extraterrestrials and intraterrestrials. The basics behind this explanation is that it is almost identical to the military psyop theory, except it is an alien race conducting such experiments. What about another idea involving ETs? The idea that they also know there is something very interesting about Skinwalker Ranch, and they are there to investigate as well. Yet another idea involving alien beings is that they are there in search of a very rare material known as gilsonite. Gilsonite is a lightweight, solid black material that is the solidification of petroleum and is found naturally in very select locations in the world, the Uinta Basin being one of these places. And what about intraterrestrials, beings that are either ancient or subterranean that live within the old caves, caverns, and tunnels throughout the basin? Could the instruments that were deployed by the NIDS team and many teams since be picking up on technology from far underground? And could this technology look like orbs, UFOs, dogmen, cloaked beings, and orange tunnels connecting parallel worlds?
No.
Yes. I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes on the intraterrestrials and possibly even cryptoterrestrials.
Ooh. That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes. Quick
Yeah,
answer
I
by
mean,
Jeff.
You
We
just
must be
explained
getting-
what an intraterrestrial was. Do I need to explain again what a cryptoterrestrial is?
No, you touched on that the other day, but good.
All right.
I mean, it must be close to his bedtime because that was quick.
You are correct, but it was just a quick thought.
I just got an update on my phone that says watch Star Wars on something. I just flicked through it. They're listening. They're listening to us.
I love
It's
it.
actually much deeper than that. Do we have time to get in? No, we can't get into that right now.
Save
It's
it for an
actually much
episode.
deep- It's
We'll
much
save it.
deeper
We'll
than
put a
them
whole
listening
episode
to.
on it.
Okay.
We still have to do the birds aren't real.
It's terrifying, but okay.
I'm gonna say no to extraterrestrials, but yes to Project Bluebeam. What a great focus, a great spot to focus this idea and this brainwashing of the masses of the UFOs and all this crap.
Holograms, man.
Just
Test them.
keep putting it out there. I mean, shoot. What if this is a black budget project area, right? Why would they then invite the History Channel to come and film and record all over it and not tell them what the vehicles are, but let them assume that they're UAPs or UFOs or aliens or something like that, if not to accentuate this idea that the extraterrestrials are here and they're visiting us, whether that's to cover up military vehicles or to push this idea of like a Project Bluebeam type scenario where they know something's coming and they want to have a plan B to say, hey, this is why this happened. It's because of the aliens.
For more information on Project Bluebeam, check
I'm
out
with that.
Project Bluebeam episode.
check
No,
out
I'm
our
so-
Project Bluebeam episode with
I'm
Jeff
so
Fernandez.
with that. I love that theory. I'm with that.
Jeff's gonna
100%.
backpedal into it, right into it,
100%.
right into my. I got you right here, man.
Wes, kid, what do you guys think?
I got nothing on this one, honestly. I can lean more towards the intraterrestrials, just because that seems to make a little more sense. Especially if it's like you can't dig in the ground. Well, why? Somebody's got to know what's going on there. But I really don't know what to think about this one. I don't buy into the extraterrestrial stories for this.
All right. Wesley King.
I had a thought and it just went and is gone. And for the life of me, I cannot. I'm like, oh my! It was something to do with what Jake was talking about in the last part of his thing. Well, I can't even remember what the fuck that was now. It just went poof.
You
I
mean
was thinking about it too hard.
Was it like the intersection of the dimensions, like the fingers intersecting? I'll keep saying stuff until it jogs your memory, like what I did with Kenzar. Was it around there?
It was after that. It was after that.
Was
The
it Project
invisibility
Arrowhead
of them?
in the mist? Was it the mullet?
The mullet. I missed the mullet.
Gosh, next time that happens, just interrupt Jeremy and just throw it out there. Just be like, "Whoa, hold on, I got it for real."
God, oh my god. I mean,
That's all right.
with your whole interdimension thing, that was like what I was trying to describe. I don't think it's just one over here, and they're crossing paths, crossing streams, if you will.
Was it in relation to like the sleepiness of the town versus the activity, and then other places where there's more activity?
Now I remember. So you were talking about. Thank you.
Mm.
You were talking about how the government is going to have like a plan to throw people off the trail, right? And
Oh yeah.
have them, not think that stuff's going on there. For me, I think it's kind of like I don't know, conspiracy inception, where these types of things, they are testing it there, but to throw people way off the trail, they're going to put stuff out there that's somewhat convincing to make people think that, okay, there is something going there, but it's not military, because it's just, I don't know, it's so random, all the different events that are happening. So I don't know, maybe that's just their, I don't know, they're like 10 moves ahead of us.
You mean like maybe there are, say, people walking around in cloaking devices, chimeras, all kinds of stuff focused in this point, but instead of saying, well, obviously this is what we're working on, they're just allowing people to discover it, and then people's just imaginations are running rampant everywhere, every direction, except for black budget or government activity.
Yeah.
Cool,
It's done
Except for that's exactly where I'm going.
Shut up, Jeremy.
What a segue. That, like, I think that's totally plausible. I'm sure that the government is doing that, and for a lot of different things on purpose, because I don't know, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but it's I don't know, it basically takes care of itself, that there's very little the government has to do except get it initially going, and then it just kind of feeds on itself, and it's self-sufficient after that. Was
there, this is more of a Jeff question, or maybe Jeremy too, was there any, the Philadelphia experiment, though, I guess theories surrounding that, was there anything that came about that pointed away from the government, or is that mostly like, everyone looked at it them and they're like, that was the government?
The Philadelphia experiment is a well-documented government experiment. Are you talking about the Montauk Project or the Philadelphia experiment?
like has there been any, like, getting away from like the UFO UAP thing, has there been any like government experiments that have happened where it really led people into these other just random locations versus immediately pointing at the government and saying this was a black budget project or something like that, like where it was successful in like
all
leading
the time,
people
dude.
away?
That's what false flags are.
Well, I mean, because I agree with Wes. What's a specific example? And personally, I have none, but you guys would be the ones to go to for that.
Any false flag, that's exactly what it is. I mean, the details will change, but I mean, like the Gulf of Tonkin, for instance, that was, we totally thought that this was some shit that went down, and we went over there to handle business. Come to find out, it was totally not some shit that went down. So the government totally had us looking over here at the left hand while the right hand was pulling a magic trick. And that's
I
just
have
one
no
example.
idea what that is.
That's the reason we went to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Oh. Yep. No idea. Sorry.
Well, pick up a history book, bud.
I can't read. They didn't teach me how to read in AD school. Anyway.
It's true, they don't.
Yeah.
This literally affects the branch of military that you're in.
No,
like this was a Navy incident.
I am a aviation Navy. I'm not some boat donkey. All right.
It started one of the biggest events. It started one of the biggest events in the last century. All right, come on.
No, it's like I hear what you're saying, but it's just wrong. So
Well,
the
point is yes. Any false flag is look over here while I do something over here.
Okay.
He be no boat chuck shoe. Okay.
That's right. But I don't know how to read. So if there's boat donkeys that know how to read, well, you got me. They said this is what a torque value is.
I can't
now go
help
get them,
you.
Tiger.
I can't help you, bud. I've tried. You're beyond help.
Yeah, you got me.
All right, you guys ready to move on?
Yep.
All right. We're just a little over halfway done. Jeff, you ready?
Don't tell me that shit. You're so full of shit.
All right, here I'll pop off. Let's see. The next one's pretty long, but I can do. Okay, here we go. I'll just I'll pop off the next two together. Okay.
Cool.
So, natural phenomena. What if the property is on a plethora of magnetic metals, causing people to see things that may not actually be there? With the large amounts of rare minerals and raw metals in the Uinta Basin, one of the most common theories about the ranch is that everything that happens is either due to or for the natural build of the landscape. Magnets have been known to cause many harmful, strange, and beneficial effects on humans. Could it be that the irregular magnetic readings commonly recorded on the ranch could actually be what is causing us to 1. See something that is not really there, 2. Causing something to be there that is not naturally attracted to other parts of the world? Or what if Skinwalker Ranch is the one place on Earth that we can get proof of Michael Persinger and John S. Durr's tectonic strain theory, which predicts that luminous phenomena and associated physical effects can be produced by manifestations of tectonic strain that often proceed by weeks to months of seismic events with a region. In layman's terms, the theory claims that UFOs and orbs can be created by the movement of tectonic plates, and the actual visual effects we see as these UFOs or orbs are actually just residual energy given off from the force of gigantic rock formations rubbing or colliding together. Moving on directly into the next one, mirages and hallucinations. What if we looked at the other side of things here? Instead of looking at the property as a cause for hallucinations, what if the effects were caused internally to our own minds instead? In the book Hunt for the Skinwalker, Kelleher and Knapp mentioned that one possibility is often brought up is that the Sherman suffered from a folie à deux-like case of paraphorenia. Time for some definitions. According to the National Library of Medicine, the phenomenon known as folie à deux is defined as an identical or similar mental disorder affecting 2 or more individuals, usually the members of a close family. And according to netmeds.com, paraphorenia is a type of mental disorder characterized by paranoid delusions. The affected individual experiences imaginary fears or anxieties that are often exaggerated, but do not undergo significant loss of intellectual capabilities, such as memory and daily routine habits. Could the Shermans have been sharing a case of paranoid delusions through fear and anxiety over the then recent shift in their lives?
No.
Yeah,
No
that's a
to both? Basically, the first one is about magnets, and the second one is mental disorders.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the magnet thing being possible, perhaps, but paranoid delusions shared by multiple people, and not just them, right? I mean, still to this day, apparently. Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
However, like what I said in that one episode, maybe everybody's huffing in some pollen off some psychedelic plant that's growing that nobody's
That
even discovered.
is something that they looked into. The NIDS team did actively look for hallucinogenic plants in the area to see if that could be affecting
Everyone's out there
what
smoking peyote in the desert.
I'm not.
Everyone, the entire town, men, women, children, smoking peyote and being like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, I
All
thought
these
that was
guys.
actually kind of. I thought that was actually kind of ridiculous idea, but I guess it's actually quite scientific of an idea. So
It was looked into by the NIDS team, and they found nothing.
That was gonna be my question. Were they smoking something and just so happened to share a trip, or like what was going on here? So, thank you for answering my question without having to ask it.
Anything else? Anybody?
I think that's a stretch. Help me out here.
Nope.
The gentleman that first conducted all the research for the ranch, he passed away recently.
Junior something or other.
Yeah,
Junior Hicks.
Junior Hicks. So when he first started his research, according to the documentary, he had like 1,000 UFO sightings that he was going through, and right away he was able to get rid of most of them until he was left with about 400 UFO sightings that couldn't right away be documented as just fake nonsense, right? And then he went into actually interviewing people that'd seen UFOs and things like that. I think that with the amount of things that have been seen on that ranch by so many different individuals, and not just people who've lived on the ranch or lived around the ranch, but people in the town that's near it, that it's been decades and decades and decades of stuff. I think that you could say that a lot of it is probably, just to get your 15 minutes of fame. A lot of it could be, as a practical joke or just deception or whatever it is, or just flat out lies, right? But certainly some of it, a certain percentage of it, has to be some people actually saw something. And I don't think that if that percentage is spaced out across an entire county or a state of people that know about this location, that you could really chalk it up into everyone's having some similar trip, which I think scientifically, there's never been two people that have shared a trip that has been exactly similar. So because of the way that your brain works as an individual, your own experiences, your own emotions, blah, blah, all this sort of stuff, even people on like shared DMT trips, like they may see the same figure, but they don't have the exact same trip.
Now, DMT, there has been trials where people have had the same trip.
The exact same one?
That's the only thing that I can come up with as an argument to what you said there. I know you have more. Sorry for jumping in, but there have been trials with DMT where people have had the exact same trip. I'm looking at
I concede them. They all are having the exact same trip, spaced across decades and decades of time. No, I'm still sticking with it. So I think that there is some legitimacy. Now, again, is that legitimacy without, beating this horse even more dead? Is that legitimacy because they're seeing UFOs? I doubt it. Or at least in their perception, it would be a UFO, right? But is it aliens? I doubt it. Are they seeing the predator monster? Very highly doubt it, right? More likely it's something, whatever that saying is, or that theory, that it's more likely the easiest thing to explain.
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor, there you go. So I think that there's definitely more truth to it than just chalk it up to it's a shared experience, or everyone's tripping out, or it's some sort of like hallucinogenic delusions that somehow an entire town or county is suffering from. Because that's a lot. That's a huge mental health crisis. If there's like a poisoned water supply, if everyone's, freaking out and their brains melting and stuff, that's like lead in the water. They need to figure out what's going on. That's like that river in Michigan that's on fire right now, sort of, levels of pollution that people are drinking, right? So Flint, Michigan. So that's not, wouldn't be something to be, laughed at or on a podcast for. And I think that would have been found out, right?
Sure. Maybe. Possibly. Who knows? Are you ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Deception and hoax. What if the Shermans were making this up from the get-go? Some disbelievers have come to the conclusion that the Shermans may have realized that they bought dead land to conduct a business that required land that would provide grazing for the animals that they were raising. Although it does rain in the Uinta Basin, the annual average is only about 8 inches per year, where the national average is roughly 38. Snow, on the other hand, is different. 22 inches on average will fall every year in the area, just 6 inches shy of the national average. But is this enough to support the business of raising high-quality Black Angus? Honestly, I don't know. I do know that some people have made it work in the area, but are they doing so with the generations of experience on these lands passed down through their lineage? Did the Shermans fall victim to the shock of running a ranch in the Uinta Basin? Did they attempt to get their money back through business or home insurance by blaming a strange set of experiences on the land itself? Or were they attempting to wipe away a bad investment by turning the ranch into a researcher's amusement park? One that would be sought out by a billionaire investor or government entity eager to investigate otherworldly technology.
No, not with the price that they sold it at. They didn't make any money off of it.
Plausible.
And I'm sure they're not profiting anything now at all. So
the Shermans, no.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that he he very well could have been making stuff up for that. I'm not doubting that whatsoever, but I don't think it was out of means of profit or to save his ranch or his business or whatever that may. Essentially, it was a means of profit. No, for what he sold the ranch at and the fact that he hasn't written a book, they didn't go out of their way to try and make money off of this entire thing. It, to me, gives more plausibility that it's real.
So I don't believe that this is the case, but I can see it being a possibility. I don't get necessarily hung up on how much they sold it for, because plans fail sometimes, right? So could they have said, you know what, we fucked up, this place sucks, let's try to get our money back by insurance, kill off a couple cows, say we want to get out of here, we don't feel safe, and let other entities move with us? Possibly, right? They could have said that, and it could have failed. The insurance could have been like, yeah, jackass, no. And it came back and bit them in the ass. I think that if this is the case, that's what happened, obviously, because they didn't sell it for very much. But this is not what I believe happened, but I think it could hold some plausibility.
I think that there's definitely some stuff going on. Again, piggybacking off myself. A lot of it could be, embellished.
To piggyback off what Jake said.
Yeah. A lot of it could be embellished and fluffed and
come on, Wes, it was funny.
All that sort of stuff. But I don't think that all of it's made up. I think that there is either a focal point of activity, or it's just really the only thing that's going on. Because we've talked about other places in the show where some crazy stuff happened. And if you look up the news in that area, there's other things that go on constantly. It's not the front page news every single day versus this thing, which if there's nothing going on otherwise besides a bunch of cattle ranches, then this would be top news every time something happened, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think that there is some strangeness, and I'll get into it more in my final thoughts.
Wes, what do you think, man? We haven't heard from you.
I've been saying it all along. I think it's something's actually happening. Something not of this world or universe or dimension, whatever you want to call it. And we have no involvement whatsoever, other than trying to maybe monitor it. I don't think we're nearly smart enough to take on something like that and have control of it.
All right.
Yeah.
To Wes's point, what do you guys think about the idea that the reason why, because the NIDS team, they own the ranch at some point?
Yes, they're the ones. Well, the Robert Bigelow bought it, but he is the owner of the NIDS
Right.
investigation team.
So
technically, yes. Technically,
maybe the
Bigelow.
reasoning for this, if there was black budget or government type experimentation going on in this area, is because of the increased activity from interdimensionals, if we call them that, or demonic activity or something like that. Because I can't look at the government right now and say that they aren't really into this whole demonic activity type stuff, and the media and all sorts of stuff. So if it was already happening and it was happening at a higher frequency than other places, this might be a really cool place for a government agency or a black budget agency to try to set up shop and do their experiments. What sort of discoveries could be made in an area that has, let's just call it a interdimensional rift or something like that, that's known about, laser focused from an agency to go over to that location to try to do some experiments that maybe can't be done anywhere else because the physics there might be different or something, right? Or I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing craziness because I feel like I have to up it, but
I feel like we're all just holding on to our final thoughts because we don't want to let anything go. Which
I'm
is
just developing as I go.
I have one.
I'm winging
one more.
it.
I got one more. And then I have my final thoughts, and then we'll break into everybody's. All right. So, precognitive intelligence. Throughout the time that the NIDS team was actively investigating the ranch, they came to the conclusion that they were dealing with what they called a precognitive intelligence. What this basically means is that they believe that the intelligence behind the happenings in the ranch was actually able to predict what the team was going to do before they even knew what they were going to do. Author Conrad Bauer makes an interesting argument in favor of the NIDS team decision in his book, The Skinwalker Ranch. He describes that quantum physicists have made many fascinating discoveries, and one of those is that the world on the quantum level reacts to our observations. Before you fight this concept, understand that this has been proven many times all around the world. Light waves have been witnessed becoming particles spontaneously due to our observation. If the quantum world can adjust and react to observation, what is to say that parts of the visible world can't do that the same? This all leads us to a man by the name of Colonel John Alexander. During the Vietnam War, Colonel Alexander was the subject of a secret military unit attempting to conduct spy games by the use of metaphysical means. Side note, Colonel John Alexander was the inspiration for the characters in the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, and you can listen to a really fun and awesome breakdown of the movie and the secret government projects it all covers by heading on over to our good friends podcast called Talking with Shadows, episode 59, April 29th, 2021, titled Podcasters Who Stare at Goats with Infinite Rabbit Hole. And check out CJ, Andrew, and I break all of these down. Besides that, Colonel Alexander would go on to continue his career with Vietnam as an intelligence officer working on classified studies of UFO phenomena. It was Colonel Alexander that first described that he believed that the entity behind the happenings at Skinwalker Ranch was what is known and referred to as a trickster. Author Conrad Bauer again makes connections to these claims by presenting the history of trickster entities through folklore and history. Loki, leprechauns, elves, and by a thin margin, the Navajo legend of the Skinwalker all deal with supernatural or otherworldly beings that seem to exist to trick and scare those in their crosshairs. Tricksters have been talked about all around the world from all walks of life. Although they go by many names, once you hear their descriptions and mannerisms, it is clear that this trickster entity is what they are all talking about. And side note, here it is. The character Mr. Mxyzptlk from the DC Universe Superman comics is based directly off the idea of the interdimensional trickster. And I actually did a really good job at pronouncing that, so I'm very happy with myself. So what do you guys think? The cosmic trickster.
Yeah, definitely with this idea as well, because I totally believe that there are these entities. Back to something that Wes said earlier, that these ancient ideas of whatever it is, like this had to come from something. Whether you're talking about a mythology or a religion or whatever it is, something happened, and these people created these mythologies to pass down to record these events that were happening. And I believe that most of these events were the interactions with these different entities. I don't know if there's 10 entities or a billion entities. I have no idea, but the archetypes of these entities carry across cultures, across time, right? The tricksters, the shapeshifters, like genies, different entities that you can find everywhere. So could this be one of these trickster entities just fucking with people? Totally could be.
I'm in line with Jeff on this one, or maybe to go even further, what people saw, they just created. That's where the trickster came from. I don't know, but it can't. All these tales and myths and mythologies, they all came from somewhere. So yeah,
I like this story. I like this one a lot. In my travels in the internet and whatnot, every once in a while I'll come across a story that's like, oh, I think I heard a skinwalker outside my door. They were mocking this person that I see all the time, but there's no way this person could have been outside, blah, 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 blah. Or I heard a crying baby, blah, 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 blah. Stuff like that. Now it just makes sense. They're hearing tricksters. It's not the skinwalker that they're thinking it is. It's just a trickster of some sorts.
All right, Jake.
Okay, so hear me out.
Not your final thoughts.
No.
Just on the cosmic trickster.
I
or the
don't believe in that. I do believe in precognitive intelligence. I think that would be more of a way to explain like the idea of if God knows everything, how do we actually have free will? And to that, I would say, Jeremy, you like football. Say a game happened and you had to go to work for it. So you recorded it on your DVR or whatever, right? And then while you're at work, the game is finished and someone tells you what the score is, who threw what pass, who made a touchdown or whatever. Does that mean that when you go back to watch that show that was a game that you recorded, because you still want to watch the game, right? It's still something that you're interested in. So you go back and watch the game, but you already know what everyone's going to do. Does that mean that those players, when they were playing that game, had no free will? And so that's kind of when people say, well, if God knows everything, if he has this precognitive intelligence, he knows what we're going to do before we do it, then how could we possibly have free will? But if he's outside of time and space and he just knows because he's seen the end, that doesn't take away from our free will. He just knows what we were going to do, right? In that analogy that I gave. Now, whether angels and demons also have that precognitive intelligence, I would say no, because they're created beings and there's no record anywhere of the book that talks about them that says that they do. That the only one that is that way would be the trihead God, God, Father, or Father, Son, Holy Spirit, right? The three attributes of God, but that he has that, everyone else does not, right? Outside of time and space, because he's not a created being. All the angels and demons would be, and so would we be. Where the mythologies could have come from, I don't know. I'm sure, like, these two said, they came from somewhere, right? But, I don't think that, I think that what Jeff says quite often is that we aren't creative enough to just wing it and just make up most things, that it comes from somewhere within us, this understanding or this knowledge that we have, whether it's passed down or probably maybe not, maybe more focused on like our cultural upbringings and things like that, and past belief systems. But I think that it probably came from somewhere. Now, whether there's demonic activity where they're screwing with people, sure, why not? Because I do believe that that's what's going on here. But as far as like things changing, because like I'm trying to like get my head around the circumstance here for this, of just like what circumstance, and this is a question for you, Jeremy, what circumstance would there be where there would be a perception of precognitive intelligence for this particular area? Like, what happened where they would point to that and say, oh, this is because they already knew what we were going to do? Was it because, they were about to start filming and then the aliens showed up, and then the second that they started filming, they didn't, or they went away? Like I don't know. What's the example?
The best example would be the bulls. They were on their way to the bulls, or they left the bulls with intentions of returning to the corral where the bulls were at. And as they returned, the bulls were all locked up in the trailer. There's one right there. Two would be the calf. Calf is another one. Three would be, shit.
But I would say that that's less of precognitive intelligence and more of observing, right? If I'm observing that you are a cattle rancher, I can probably make a good guess that if you, whenever you return, maybe it's an hourly basis, or maybe it's like, hey, this is when the chores are, this is when I need to feed the cattle, this is when I need to move them from one pasture to another, whatever it may be. I can pretty reasonably guess that in the same way, Jeremy, you come home from work and you put your car keys somewhere, eventually you're going to come back to get your car keys, right? So if
No.
I did something with your car keys, like threw them in the oven, you're going to come back and be like, oh my gosh, where are my car keys at? It's not precognitive intelligence. It's just knowing your pattern and what you're going to be doing throughout the day. So if they left the bowls and then eventually they're going to come back to the bowls, and regardless of whether they find the bowls locked in the shed, stacked on top of each other, and they're alive or dead and rotting, is besides the point. The fact is that they have 4 Black Angus steer that are stacked one on top of another, stuffed inside of a shed. That's a weird circumstance in itself, regardless of the level of living or dead that those steer were then at, right?
Right.
So I don't think that it has anything to do with this notion of like they knew that we were going to do this, like because they had some supernatural ability. They knew we were going to do this because after a week of observing your patterns, they could say, this is exactly what they're going to do. Or they put this one out here to isolate it for some reason, they're going to come back to it eventually. Now, what if that's 45 minutes or a day from now?
Yeah.
Right.
So I think you make a good point. You know, if you're a cattle rancher, there's a good chance, you know, you get into a rhythm. Joke's on you. I put my keys in the oven all the time.
Well, then I'll put them in the microwave. Really trip you out.
Well,
That
I don't
precognitive
do,
intelligence, yeah.
because metal and microwaves just don't work. But ovens are
No.
fine. No, I mean, you make a good point. You do. I believe, well, let's just get into my final thoughts real quick. Okay.
I see how it is.
And then we'll just have an open conversation after everyone's final thoughts, because I know Jeffrey's getting tired. All right.
I can't even go to bed anyways because I still have to export and upload this video, so I'll be up till like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Nice.
Aw.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want someone to talk to you?
Nope.
Good.
Call your
All
mom.
There's a rumor that Jeffrey is famous with moms. Anyways, my final thoughts.
I
started that rumor.
I find the idea of Skinwalker Ranch to be truly incredible and fascinating. To think that there is a place in the world where the paranormal and supernatural come to play together in a smorgasbord of terror and trickery blows my mind in more ways than one. This led, of course, to me not fully understanding what my true thoughts and feelings on the subject actually were. So I broke the concept down into a few questions for myself to really create an opinion on this difficult topic. 1. Do I think that there is something going on at Skinwalker Ranch? My answer is yes. I can't believe that out of the decades of reported activity from the ranch and the surrounding area that there isn't some form of high strangeness taking place. 2. Do I think it's all legit? No. As I asked myself these questions, I found it harder and harder to answer, but for this particular one, I would have to say that not 100% of what has been reported is factual. Although I do believe in a portion of what happened, nailing down exactly which ones were real and false was honestly probably the most difficult task. Remember, it is in our nature to want to have experiences. And with that, the more people that show up at the ranch expecting to have an experience they cannot explain increases. But expectation is often not reality. And more times than not, someone would walk away from the hunt with a fabricated story in order to fill the void from their disappointment. Unfortunately, this is very common. And 3, which theory do I believe? Honestly, there are a few that I think have a legitimate chance. The dimensional trickster, a thin veil between parallel worlds, secret military testing from a base underground, Native American curses, and a dash of natural phenomena all mixed in with a bit of exaggerant from the many layers of media and entertainment all mixed together for a perfect concoction that we call Skinwalker Ranch. So yes, I do believe that there is something paranormal happening here, and I do believe it very well could be more than one thing, but I also believe that a lot of it has been exaggerated. But by no means do I think this place is invalid, fraudulent, or normal. Skinwalker Ranch will always pique my interest, and I fully believe that there is, or was, something going on here that screams for further legitimate investigation.
A lot of big words right there.
Very well. I'll keep mine short and sweet because I've already said it 10 times. But yeah, I just think there's probably, like Wes is saying, some interdimensional bleed through happening here and other places. And there's probably some black budget operation, or has been some black budget operation to investigate this or observe this or whatever the case is. And I think these people, most of them are probably seeing nothing. They're just seeing things because that's what the mind does. And for the ones who are actually experiencing something, they're probably just sensitive to this phenomena, or maybe there just is some physical shit happening in our realm, and that's it, man. So I'm with it. Definitely something going on. Let's go camping trip. I'm down.
Wes, what do you think, man?
Like I said, time before, I'm right in line with Jeff. I just don't think our government has any direct involvement. They're more of just observing it like we are, but with a lot
They're
more.
attracted like moths to a flame.
Yeah, they just have better.
Or like Light the Flies for all my Trivium fans out there.
Yeah. Great song, by the way. They just have better equipment. They're better suited to try to observe what's going on. But I don't think they have any real direct involvement.
Well, kid, what do you think is really going on down there at Skinwalker Ranch?
Like you said, I think it's a little sprinkle of everything, but the one I'm leaning towards the most right now is the trickster theory. That one, just stories of people claiming they're seeing a skinwalker and all of that. The relation of it is fun. It's interesting. I like that whole story that you presented there. It just makes sense to me that something might be out there playing tricks on us, because why not? Again, that something could just be our own minds playing tricks on us, but I'm like, I love the lore. The military's got to have, or the government or whatever has got to have some sort of involvement, but are they in charge of everything? No, I don't think so. Hallucinations I can't buy into at all. And I don't really think it's extraterrestrial stuff at all. I really like this trickster one. That's the one I'm sticking with.
Right on. And Jacob.
Like
old
insects,
sausage nipples.
Like insects to a light source. All right, so okay. I said right in the beginning that I had discovered some stuff because of the documentary. I was like, the documentation, the documentary that kind of tripped me out a little bit. Right in episode 1, I heard this whole story of the wolf, and I was like, this is baloney. I think I even may have said that it was baloney. And nay, now I say nay. So there, so this is a perfect graphic, so don't freak out. I am an artist. Found out because of that documentary that the Shermans, after they had their wolf encounter, a couple weeks later, they were approached to give a description of what they believed the wolf looked like, as far as like its size and stuff. They were given a lineup of 3 different silhouettes. One was a pony, one was a wolf, and one was of a dire wolf. And they said, point to what you saw. And they pointed directly at the dire wolf. Now, this is pretty much based off of that lineup, that graphic that was displayed on the TV. Keep in mind, excellent picture.
Yeah.
But this was about the size. Wow. They said pony, wolf, dire wolf. Dire wolf's cut off because I ran out of paper. Because I didn't, open it up like this. But anyway, but they pointed at this one, the size of the pony. And you think that people that deal with large animals all the time wouldn't know the size of a regular wolf versus a pony versus a dire wolf. And they didn't tell them, they didn't say this is a dire wolf. They just said point at the silhouette. And they pointed at that. And we've gone into that in other episodes of this possibility that dire wolves could still exist. And then I looked into the area, and the area is riddled with caves, with abandoned gold mines, with canyons, all kinds of crap, right? All kinds of hiding areas. And if we're going to go into other cryptids that are in other areas, whether that's, was it the Tasmanian tiger, I believe, right? Not the devil, but the tiger is supposedly extinct, even though it went extinct in like the 30s, and it could still exist. And it's still seen all the time. Now, I'm not saying that wolf still exists, but could it have existed during this time, right? Especially if this area is so unpopulated. And the way it went is said no to the humans and went right for the calf, right? As almost as if this is its hunting pattern, is to go after the weaker, smaller animals, not the humans that are going to give it a bunch of issues. Now, did it take 6 shots with a 357 Magnum and then 2 shots with a 30-06 and really nothing happened? I don't know. But maybe with an animal that size, would it, like if you went after a grizzly bear right now, because that's pretty much the size we're talking about. If you shot at a grizzly bear right now, or a small grizzly bear or a large black bear, how many shots could you shoot into the side of it before it stops what it's doing? I don't know because I don't hunt those things. A well-placed shot right in its heart probably, effectively won. Because my pastor goes bow hunting for black bear, right? But in its shoulder blades or just shooting randomly into its body, right?
Especially with the amount of fat these things have on them.
Right. But
well, bears at least.
Well, bears, yeah. So, but I'm sitting here thinking about it. I was like, so this wolf story could be real, especially with the black coloring, because we have that other video from like Montana or something where that big old German Shepherd was going after a
Minnesota.
wolf. Minnesota. It was bigger than any wolf I've ever seen in my entire life. And wolves get really big, but this thing looked like a straight up dire wolf, right?
Fucker's
it's in the
huge,
snow,
man.
And we should, make a point to put a link to that in the description. I'll try to, remember that for this episode. But it's just like, it's freaking nuts. And so it's just like, maybe this thing has some truth to it, right? So that tripped me out. Then, going into the phenomenon with the TV show where they're seeing the heat signatures and stuff from, the second homestead or whatever. And, they see that crazy decrease in temperature suddenly. And they showed the screen. Literally, like the whole thing went like dark black and purple, and then everything else was red around it because it was the focal point of that crazy, temperature drop, right? And it was right where they said it was. They had the walking around with the 3D mapping technology and stuff, and they're walking around inside the house. I'm not saying they couldn't have turned the thing off to add, drama to the show, but they showed that there was this big black spot where it didn't, pick up anything. So I hesitate to say that this is all made up and there's nothing happening here. I definitely think there is something happening here, but at the same time, I think that there's a lot of nothing, a lot of drama that's added, especially with the rise of technology, because even I think it was George Knapp said in the documentary that really nothing happened in the 70s. It was very small as far as like the sightings that were going on. There was some UFO stuff, there was some whatever. And then the way more disturbing stuff started happening in the 90s. And that was when we saw this boom in technology, shortly afterwards, in the 2000s, the internet would really just kick up and all sorts of stuff, all these sorts of things. But we were in that phase. There was all that stuff coming up online, and how convenient is it that suddenly all these crazy stories start coming out, and it's just like, so I don't think that there was nothing, but I think it's way overplayed now. And I believe it would be likely that there is black budget type stuff going on or government type stuff going on in that area as well. Like, I 100% believe that this UFO phenomenon is completely, just fabricated. It's fabricated hysteria to distract from other things. It really seems like, it could be coincidence, which I don't believe in, but it seems like every time there's some major, like, hey, this is what we're talking about, the UFOs, we're having some congressional hearing or something like that to give out more information, there's also some other craziness going on in the world that would, the focus is drawn over here.
Sleight of hand.
Perfectly timed or it's, purposefully timed is probably what I'm getting to. But that there is this distraction that's going on, a major distraction, right? For whatever reason, I don't know, but I don't think that there's nothing going on. I think that there's probably cryptid stuff going on. I think there's probably demonic stuff going on. Black budget ops going on and stuff, testing. And why not? Let's let the media in here and let them go wild with the craziness and the accusations, because honestly, none of us can point at some black budget agency, we don't even know what they're called, and say those are the people responsible. Who cares if people think that it is, right? No one can prove that it is. So let them run wild with it, especially since, this is during the time frame of the government announcing, oh, there's aliens and we don't know what they want and they have technology that's far superior to ours, and everyone's just running rampant with it. They see flares out in the ocean, they're like, the aliens, everyone's just brainwashed these days, or a lot of people are. And so, yeah, why not just let them in, and then they're going to immediately think that it's the aliens and all kinds of stuff, and we could just keep doing what we're doing. Who cares if people really see it anymore, right? It doesn't need to be at a military base in the middle of nowhere where no one's allowed access. It could literally be over San Francisco, and everyone's going to be like, the aliens, oh gosh, the aliens. No one, very rarely are people going to say that's the government or that's black budget. And even still, who's going to believe them? It's like, 5 schmucks on a podcast just talking about it. No one's going to believe us, right? So maybe Danny, but that's about it.
I don't know who you're calling schmuck. Anyways,
you, but that's but that's what that's what I think, is that there is craziness, there is strangeness, but it's not, when it comes to like the alien stuff, that's all just because they can, right? I mean, who's going to stop them, for one? Who's going to prove that it's them, And, especially with the narrative going on right now, most people are going to look at the aliens and then attribute most of everything else that's going on to the aliens. I mean, the predator monster versus, like what you guys were talking about, a cloaking device.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
All right. So
Wes is like, no. No.
I just want to point out a post from June 15th on the Infinite Rabbit Hole Facebook group by Taggart Wyatt. Taggart Wyatt. Thank you, Taggart. I really appreciate this, because this is the video of the wolf in Minnesota. I just sent it to our group chat, the Infinite Rabbit Hole group chat, so you guys can look at it if you want to. But take a minute. I'll do you one better than what Jake said. Instead of posting a link to it, we're going to make you guys go to the Infinite Rabbit Hole Facebook page and go to June 15th. Taggart Wyatt posted this video that we've talked about. Jake and I have dove into this video before many of times. It is an unbelievably awesome video. Thing scares the living shit out of me. And I don't know who recorded this, but letting their dog next to that fucking thing is a complete idiot.
It's huge.
Huge. Absolutely huge. And it's a fucking dark, pitch black wolf.
And
literally matches the description of the wolf from the Skinwalker Ranch.
And I don't even know, because of the distance, if that thing is big enough to be considered a dire wolf, if that's just a big wolf. If they did in fact see a dire wolf, then, I mean, literally we're talking like face level at the shoulder, right? A 6 foot tall human looking at this thing's shoulder is maybe, you're looking right at it, or it's just below that. So it's maybe like 5 feet tall at the shoulder or something like that. They're freaking massive. And so maybe this is one, maybe it's not. I don't know, because of the distance, and you'd have to go out there and measure the trees and see, was it standing in tall grass, whatever it was. But still, if they actually did see this wolf and it was that big and they think it was a dire wolf, that's a monster. And yeah, it might make sense that they could put a bunch of rounds into it and maybe not affect it, especially if they're just shooting into its bones or something. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, so that has been our. Oh wait, does anybody else have anything else to add here? Good to go?
Nope.
All right, well, that has been our coverage of Skinwalker Ranch. I know that we've talked for probably over 6 hours total within these last 3 episodes. Jeff would love to murder me, but he can't, because he also loves me. He's conflicted. that is the bulk of Skinwalker Ranch. If you want more stories, I have more stories I can go into. I can go into the stories of a security officer that did security for the ranch for quite a while. I can go into stories of a gentleman who snuck onto the ranch quite often and has come out with 10 books on his own personal experiences with the unknown on Skinwalker Ranch. There's a lot out there. There's a lot. Now, whether or not it's all real, no idea. But if you guys would like to hear more from the stories of Skinwalker Ranch, let us know. InfiniteRabbitHole@gmail.com. Shoot us an email. Hit us up at Facebook.com and go to the Infinite Rabbit Hole Facebook group. Simple as that. We also have a website, InfiniteRabbitHole.com, where we have a contact us link. Just go ahead and fill that out. Go straight to our email. We get emails all the time. By the way, if you sent us an email and you're wondering why we haven't replied, check your junk mail. I think that's where it goes. I'm fairly certain because we get emails quite a bit, and only one or two will reply to our reply. So check your junk mail. Pretty sure everyone thinks that we're spam, but we're not. We're just people. We're not food. Right. So
And send us a voicemail.
Danny,
send us a voicemail.
Danny needs to send
Danny.
us a voicemail. Why isn't Danny
voicemail,
sent
Danny?
a voicemail? You'd feel like, Danny, come on, Danny.
Come on, Danny.
Danny.
Voicemail, Danny.
Voicemail. Jeff
Poor
and Wes
Danny.
No,
Yeah.
we love Danny. All right.
It's great.
That's it. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. We will see you in the next branch in the rabbit infinite hole thing. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.